Whenever I'm faced with talking to a group of car enthusiasts and our ramblings are ever increasingly fueled by gasoline or diesel or maybe in some cases a bit of alcohol, I feel like the same question keeps coming up, which is, what are the best, the coolest, and the most affordable brand new cars you could think of on the market right now? And my answer honestly keeps coming back to a hot compact car of some kind. And if you're shaking your head at my answer, well, let me explain something. I'm a child of the late 80s and early 90s, and back then and even to this day, cars like that were and still are the best way for most young people to truly get their speed fix. But nowadays, if you want a legendary name like GR, Type R, GLI, GTI, or even STI, you're gonna have to spend at least $40,000 to $50,000 US. So it sounds like all hope is lost, but fear not, because what I've got this week may just be that little bit of a glimmer, because it may look like an ordinary new Toyota Corolla SE. It also may look like someone's done it up pretty tastefully already. But the fact is that everything on that car is not only affordable, it comes straight to you from the factory, and it's all wrapped up with a very cool name. Isn't it such an amazing feeling when you find yourself in the right place at the right time, or maybe I guess from where I'm sitting, the right car at the right time? I mean, I hold no secrets that I'm no super fan of the Toyota Corolla, but over the years I've grown a much greater appreciation for what these little cars stand for. They've become one of the top tier staples of the 4-cylinder compact economy car, and you can definitely see why. They're reliable as stink, they offer enough stuff to keep people happy, and I guarantee you most people that look at these cars have one thing in mind, which is value. What am I getting for the money? Well, in most other Corollas, I would say they're a pretty solid buy. You know, whether you get a hatchback or whether you get a 4-door sedan like this, you can still get quite a lot in terms of what you're getting for the money. But would I say that the Nightshade sort of fits into that category? Not really, because the base price of this trim level is $25,000, maybe a little over. And that sounds like a relatively decent deal. I mean, it's got a good bit of technology, it's a great looking car, and above all, it's actually really comfortable, even for someone tall like me. I've got loads of room in here, the visibility is fantastic, and yeah, it may not have things like heated seats or anything like that, but when you start kind of adding in options like that, that's where the price starts to make a little less sense to me, because, well, the one I've got here with a few little options added on is stretching to over $28,000. And that to me is where I draw the line, because that is quite a lot of money for what in most minds and most eyes is not a whole lot of car. Now, I'm not going to sing the Corolla's praises from every rooftop in the nation because, well, just like every other car I've driven, there are quite a few things I'm not so much a fan of, and you can definitely hear one of them right now. I mean, this is not exactly the most expensive car, the most lavish car you will ever drive, but I would think that a little more sound deadening could do some good, because at 60 miles an hour right now, I do feel like I'm having to raise my voice a little bit. On top of that, if you're more used to a normal Corolla where the suspension is maybe a little more bouncy, it's not exactly the harshest thing on 4 wheels, well, this car has a sport suspension in it, and therefore it does feel like you're feeling a lot more of the road. And I don't know if that's so much a good thing for most people or a bad thing, because, well, as somebody who likes to drive, I mean, this is a pretty fun little car to, you know, chuck around a bit. But if you're expecting the steering to be, you know, like pin sharp, like a little go-kart, it's not really that either. It's kind of numb, it's a little soft, it's not exactly the most dynamic car I've ever felt. And even if you wind this thing all the way up in sport mode, yeah, sure, the steering does tighten up a little bit. It sort of feels like it's giving you a little bit more. But its little 2-liter 4-cylinder in the front, the CVT transmission in the middle, which I still have quite a distaste for because it feels like I'm driving a water balloon attached to a rubber band. Well, I mean, you're going to get over 40 miles to the gallon, so you may pay a lot for the car in the first place, but all the same, you know, you're going to save quite a lot in the long run. And I think That's where a lot of people find the value in a car like this. Yes, it's not as quiet as a lot of the others, and it may not even be as spacious as some of the others, but it's still very frugal. And in today's economy, with the value of the US dollar going out of sight, that's definitely something to talk about. But I really want to focus on the fact that this is supposed to be a limited edition car. It's supposed to be a little more special than your everyday Corolla. And to be honest, I haven't had a single person turn their head at this car and go, wow, that's the Corolla Nightshade, that is so cool. And I actually had the same problem with the Corolla Apex that I drove a couple years ago. I actually even had one guy ask me with that car if I had modified it myself. And when I told him it was all from factory, well, needless to say, the face kind of fell a little bit. And I think for most people, especially if you're maybe a younger enthusiast or maybe you're just more young at heart, you might think, sport suspension, that might feel a little more dynamic in some way, or hey, put it in sport and the steering is sharper a little bit. That might help me if I'm gonna, take some corners a little more spiritedly. But don't think for any reason that this car is going to excite you with the sound that it makes. It doesn't matter what mode you're in. You give it any form of excessive throttle, and all you get is like the sound of a weed eater coming from up front. God, this car is just so weird. It's such a mystery. I mean, I like it because of what it stands for. I know this car is going to be reliable over a long period of time. I know for a fact that I could actually live with one of these for a very solid amount of time. I don't know. Well, I think, maybe we need to go back to another spot and talk about the rest of this car because, well, maybe that might answer the question. Now, I may have been poking a bit too much fun at the way this car drives, but I don't think it's so much of a laughing matter in the way that this car looks. Now, I know this is a bit of a controversy for a lot of you diehard Corolla fans and enthusiasts alike, because many of you have told me so many times before that you prefer the styling of the hatchback compared to this four-door sedan. And in some ways, I would agree. This car is still a very handsome vehicle as a hatchback, but I think the four-door here, especially as an SE or an XSE, just provides that right balance of being very well proportioned with still maintaining a very sporty and slightly more aggressive stance. And I also would go one better to say that this particular example, dressed in the midnight black metallic with its nice little exterior amenities, would be the ideal image for Batman to have if he was in the market for a 40-mile-per-gallon daily driver. But I've really become a fan as well of the updates that Toyota has done to make this car just a little more modern than it was when it first came out. For example, I love the styling of the combination LED daytime running lights and turn signals fixed into their own separate lighting. You have LED headlights and high beams. You have auto high beam assist on this car as well. But one little downer is down here in the lower fascia, I thought these were LED fog lights at first, but I have yet to see these things turn on, and I have yet to find a button in which to activate such a function on this car as well. But I love the front lower fascia here. Maybe not so much with the grille. I mean, yes, it's open, and yes, it's all blacked out pretty much like the rest of the car, but it kind of looks like somebody that's trying to make a kissing face a little too much. It kind of sticks out a little too far. But overall, as just a styling package, I think this is a great car to look at. And if you're perhaps looking for a sporty car that also has a bit more of a safety aspect to it, well, the Corolla still has it. This has the full Toyota Safety Sense 3.0 on board, which means you not only get things like forward collision warning, but you also get some fun stuff like the ubiquitous dynamic radar cruise control. Now, if looking at it from the front didn't give you enough of a sporty first impression with this car, I think looking at it from the side kind of drives that point home a little bit more. Again, the proportions of this car are just right, at least in my eyes personally. But in terms of its length, it does lose out to the king of them all with the new Honda Civic, with the Corolla stretching 182.5 inches from nose to tail versus the Civic at a full fat 184. But where I think this particular Corolla wins out in terms of that battle is what it is rolling on. I love the Nightshade Edition special set of 18-inch alloy wheels. I love the bronze color. I love the split spoke design. I think it's a great contrast with the black in this case as well. And I almost feel like I've seen this set of wheels before. They look almost the same as the ones I saw on the Corolla Apex a couple of years ago. But this being a more sporty car, they did go with some sporty rubber as well, with 225/40 series Michelin all-season tires. And when you're nearing the 30 grand price mark for any car, you would expect that as you start to work your way along the car, that you would find a whole host of updated and more modern goodies, things that would really sell you on the idea of owning this car. But the Corolla, I think, plays a little more of a subtle game than that. There's not too many artistic curves and flares or anything like that. There is a bit of dirt on this car, and actually quite a bit of it. Keeping in mind, I washed this car yesterday and it is already filthy. So if you're thinking about buying a black car, there's your answer about how clean it's going to stay. But as you walk along, the mirrors have been updated. You've got the external turn signals here. These have been upgraded with the optional blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. This car, in at least the one I have, does not have a sunroof of any kind, which that's not so much a negative to me. I could kind of do without one of those anyway. And then you get a slightly older style version of at least the key fob for Toyota's advanced keyless access. Now, we have seen this blank backed key before, and pretty much everything else is on the front, including the Toyota emblem from lock, unlock, trunk, and panic. It's all there. Now, the car is open at the moment, so if you want to lock it per se after you've gotten in or out, you just lay your finger on the little ridges on the front. But then suppose, oops, I forgot something and you want to get back in, just grab the handle as you normally do. And perhaps you're thinking that the front of this car might be a little too in your face for you. Well, just look at it from the back. Some might say the rear end styling is a little plain Jane, and at first I thought the same thing, but given the right treatments, I think this car does have still a bit more of that sporty factor. I will say it is lacking in terms of any kind of real LED lighting back here. There's incandescent reverse lights, incandescent turn signals, and probably even incandescent tail lights. But again, the styling kind of comes into its own. If this were a lighter colored car, you'd see that not only do you have this gloss black divider that splits between the tail lights here, but that all of your badging is now black. So you have black Toyota badges front and rear, the black Corolla badge, the black SE badge, and even a nice gloss black diffuser going along the bottom. A very, very sporty yet nice touch. And just like the sudden rain shower that just humidified the air around here, if perhaps you're thinking that the four-door sedan is the more optimal choice for you and you're more of a practicality-minded person, well, I hate to dampen the mood a bit, but this actually has the least amount of cargo capacity out of the 3 Corolla branded cars right now. As you walk up and open the trunk, visually, I would say it looks like a pretty open space. You can still fold down the back seats and get even more space out of the four-door here, but the numbers on paper don't lie. The four-door sedan has 13.1 cubic feet of cargo volume, which can also be extended a little bit, not just by the seats, but if you're feeling a bit secretive here, you can roll up that carpeted floor mat, look underneath, and suddenly you'll find that this car, at least in this case, has a compact donut spare tire and its applicable toolkit. You won't find either of those in some of this car's competitors, but yet again, the hatchback wins here with 17.8 cubic feet of usable cargo volume behind its rear seats. And don't even get me started on the Corolla Cross crossover. That has over 21 cubic feet of usable space behind the rear seats. You fold those down, well, you're obviously seeing who's the winner here. So if practicality isn't quite your forte, or at least it's not the biggest thing on your mind, this car should do the trick fairly well. Now, while anyone, unless you're blind, can see that this car is definitely trying to be a bit more spicy and a bit more aggressive on the outside, when it comes to where you sit, I wouldn't say this is Toyota's greatest effort. Now, I know the Corolla is supposed to be a value price car, special edition or not, but I think for this version, they just didn't put their best foot forward. They did try, however, because I do like the pattern going on these cloth seats here. The red inserts in the middle. I love the little red and silver stripe going up the top of the seat, but the seats aren't heated, they aren't cooled, and let alone they're not even power adjustable, even for the driver's seat, which was a bit of a downer for me because, well, as you can plainly see, my legs are obviously a lot more longer than my torso, And I found that after driving this car for a little while, my legs did start to cramp up a little bit. But what was not cramping was pretty much the rest of me, because I love how the bolsters on the seats aren't too intrusive. They don't squeeze your body, rather than they just kind of curve around it. I've said that about a lot of sports cars, haven't I? And then when you look right in front of you, you've got a leather wrapped steering wheel. That's always nice to see. It's not heated, as if the seats were enough of an indication of that, which I could care less about anyway. But you also have all the ancillaries right in front of you, from your aero pad that controls the digital display in the middle of your very basic digital gauge cluster, down to your multimedia controls and all of your safety ancillaries as well. What I'm also happy to see with this newest update on the Toyota Safety Sense is the mode button for your cruise control, because you can switch from the adaptive radar cruise to a regular cruise control if perhaps you don't like the car controlling too much. But if you think that's basic enough, you turn towards the middle, and the first thing your eyes see is an 8-inch touchscreen display. Now, I know a lot of parts of this car are small, but that's still a bit too small for me. It is still filled with all of Toyota's newest telematics, however, so you have a subscription-based navigation, which is kind of sad, because I would have thought maybe you might get that as an option, or maybe just a standard feature. But you also get Bluetooth, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, your backup camera, all of your vehicle settings, pretty much anything you want is right there in the screen. But if you want to heighten the experience even more, pay about an extra $600, because then you'll go from getting a 6-speaker Toyota-based audio system to a premium JBL sound system with a built-in subwoofer in the trunk. Now, JBL has always been pretty successful for me, and considering how little air there is to move around in this cabin, it's safe to say it's not shocking at all at the sound quality this system provides. Now, the size of the screen might be a little bit off-putting for some due to its size, but the level of simplicity in here is almost shocking. I have a single-zone climate control system with temperature, fan speed, and any other ancillary I could possibly need. I don't even have a wireless charger in this particular car, but if you really need to charge your phones, I mean, do you really need that? There's plenty of USB-Cs to go around in here. But in the middle, I have drive mode, traction control, brake hold, my electronic parking brake, a couple of sizable cup holders, and a gear stick in the middle. You think that would be about it, right? Well, my final party trick is the center console. It's small. It doesn't really hold very much aside from maybe a phone, a wallet, or maybe a couple random receipts. But if perhaps your arms are a bit too awkwardly placed and you would rather rest your whole arm on the console rather than maybe just your elbow, grab a hold of the whole lid and it suddenly slides forward. Now, if you thought the front end of this car was just barren in terms of features and technology already, you haven't been in the back seat of this one yet, because if you're looking for tech of any kind, forget it. The only things I've got back here are 2 USB-C chargers at the back of the console. If you're looking for comfort, well, the seats are actually quite nice, and you do have a fold-out armrest with a couple of cup holders. But other than that, those are the most special things about the back seat of this particular Corolla. However, I am happy to say that at over 6 feet, need I reiterate any more, that with the driver's seat in my optimal driving position, I actually have a bit of room for my legs. I can actually move around a little bit without punching the back of the seat. I actually have a bit of room for my head as well, thanks to the indented ceiling up here. So it can be comfortable, but if you're looking for a well-optioned Corolla, at least for your rear occupants, this ain't gonna be it. Well, guys, the sun is blazing down on us here in Houston, so it is time to conclude our review and drive of the 2024 Toyota Corolla SE Nightshade. And I know some of you are still saying, oh, boo, it's a Toyota Corolla. There's never going to be anything remotely exciting about that car ever in its life. Well, you know, I might have said something similar to that earlier, but you know, in the end, it's a car that's great for young buyers. The Toyota Corolla continues to prove itself to be an affordable, reliable piece of compact transportation. And to those young ones out there who want something sporty, but for parents who maybe don't want something that could get their young one in trouble, this is a pretty solid choice to fit pretty much everything I just mentioned. But if you guys like what you've seen with this Corolla today, or perhaps you learned something about it as well, give this video a thumbs up, and also while you're at it, hit the subscribe button down below, because trust me, without partnerships like Gulf States Toyota and without subscribers and viewers like yourselves, I probably wouldn't still be doing this now. But in any event, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.